I'm just going to go right straight to the point here, guys. I'm just going to go right to the stories. And the story that I'm going to be talking about is pretty much made every front page in every newspaper, every last blogger, every last news articles from both the websites and news sites have talked about it. There's video about it, so there is no shock about what I'm going to bring up. It involves the T.S.A. and their incompetence. Now, this story, oh man, let me just get started here. An 18-month-old girl, an 18-month-old baby, was pulled off a flight because she was on the terrorist watch list, a no-fly list, which stunned everyone. Anyone who have heard the story, who read the story, was absolutely stunned. The Post and the news had the front page article. One of them, I believe, says "The Face of Terror," and it showed this infant child. And the first thing you ask is this some kind of joke? Is this like a real bad joke that the paper was pulling? And once you read it, it this goes to show why racial profiling or profiling of any kind is simply no good. I have an article, I have a link, and there's a video link if you guys haven't seen the video. But needless to say, the family is planning to speak to attorneys. So do expect this to be in the news, in the spotlight for a while longer, especially after the way they was treated. According to the parents of an 18-month-old girl, they say they was humiliated after being pulled off the plane and told their young child has been placed on the no-fly list. After boarding JetBlue flight in Fort Lauderdale, parents of young Rihanna, I think that is, it's with a Y, who asked to remain anonymous over fear of repercussion, which I can understand perfectly well, was told by transportation security agencies T.S.A. wanted to interview their toddler. Of course, that the parents were stunned. They was asking for what, and they basically got a response saying, "Well, it's not you or your husband. Is your daughter was flagged as a no-fly," and says, and they basically just looked at them like it was a joke. The report also says whoever is to blame. The parents said they believe that the incident began because they were both Middle Eastern descent and because their wife was wearing an additional headband, a headscarf, while boarding the flight. They also believe that drove a panic, and found that Muslim Americans say they believe that they were disappropriately singled out by airport security officers. Eventually, the couple were given their boarding pass back, insisting both JetBlue and TSA they were responsible for the incident. They basically are blaming themselves. TSA basically came out and said that was the airline's problem, that they did not do anything wrong, and the JetBlue basically saying that was T.S.A issue. They basically trying to cover their own ass, and is basically making matters worse. Now, it also said that they didn't took the plane back; they drove back. According to news reports, as well as many of the people close to the family, especially those who did the interview, said they are planning to file lawyers. So do expect a lawsuit to follow after this. What makes this so sickening is that the fact is that the TSA, in my opinion, is probably the most incompetent, irresponsible agency that ever was developed by the White House. There is no other way to put it. These people have done nothing but make situations worse when it comes to checking people from flights. We had an incident in New York, by all means, about an old woman who was in her 80s, and I actually did a video on this as well, being harassed to the point where she was forced to strip search in a room, in a primarily concealed room, and she walked out of there with injuries, which the TSA themselves denied. They denied these injuries, and it wasn't until it was actually visible for everybody to see, because the injuries were there. There was record on it, that they finally say, yeah, there was an incident. We finally found out. So their trust in being honest and truthful just went out the door. And there was other incidents where you had a guy who was blatantly had something against Muslims, who had a Facebook page, basically covered about Muslims. A good Muslim is a dead Muslim. Yet worked for the T.S.A. This kind of stuff happens, and eventually he was pulled out. But the point is, you would think they would actually screen people or test people who has these kind of motivations, but no, they don't. And there was reports about them, how they practice. And let's just say these ain't professional security officers. They're not, which scares me even more. Now, before I even go any further, I'm going to say this. I'm aware of the world we live in. I'm not sitting there and saying that the T.S.A. Should not exist, because I know why they are here to begin with. You had the incident that happened with 9/11, a terrible incident. And for the most part, we need to have something in place to make sure that we get safely to one end to another. I'm not blinded by that. That's not my issue. I wouldn't have an issue with TSA if they did their job right. And what I mean by that is they managed to harass people in terms of strip searching, point out people, including children. And by the way, this ain't the first time they single out children. There's been numerous reports about this all across the country. This one just basically caught everyone's attention across the states. My beef is they're good at this, but they're terrible at the other things that they should be good at. Mostly, I don't know, making sure weapons don't get through security. We have like $1 million worth of equipment that's supposed to catch even the slightest hint of a security threat, and yet they proven time and time again they go through. There's the underwear bombing, who was in the flight and could have detonate that thing at any time if it wasn't for the last minute heroics that got him off the plane. These kind of stuff they seem to miss. But they don't have a problem sticking out other people. They don't have no problems profiling. And this is the problem I have with the TSA. The TSA needs to be restructured. And they need to be restructured to the point where they're properly trained, better trained. None of that 6 months, 3 months stuff. Really trained so that way they know what to do, they know what they cannot do, and they know how to better screen people who are supposed to be on the no-fly list versus the ones that are not on the fly list. There's no excuse for this. None. They said it was an error from a computer. Why am I surprised? But you know what? They do take pictures, I'm assuming. They do have photos of someone who they suspect of terrorist activities or wasn't supposed to be boarding the plane. You would think they have that on display just in case they have to double check. But apparently that was not the case, and I do believe there was racial profile. I do believe that she has, the family has a strong case. This is sad, this is very, very sad. The Post had mentioned how much dirty looks they was getting by the passengers, which, by the way, led them to not board the plane to begin with. It's an embarrassing, humiliating, especially since it was clear they was left out there, unknown what's going on, in the middle of the airport, just to be humiliated on display. And they do that a lot, only to find out they made a mistake. And what's sad about it is neither the T.S.A. or JetBlue are going to be at least responsible enough to say, this is our fault, we do apologize. No, they just basically all get back on the plane. Come on, guys. I mean, seriously, there's a big problem with that, and they really seriously need to address that. They really need to seriously address that. They really need to do some very intense training with the staff from the ground up. And they really need to do that now, because how many more lawsuits, how many more complaints are going to have before you realize that, hey, the TSA ain't really that sufficient. And they're not. They're just not. Well, that's the first story I have, and welcome to What's News. I wanted to get that one out because this one did burn a lot of articles in my newspapers, as well as a lot of websites. It's disgusting. I'm sorry to say it. Look, again, I'm not stupid. I know that we need better security in terms of combating terrorism, and it does exist. There are people out there looking to hurt us, but there's a difference between efficiency and the difference between just plain harassment. And this was plain harassment, and that should never have happened, especially to people who just want to go to one place to another. A toddler, 18-month old. Come on. Let me just go and move on because I already spent 10 minutes on this topic alone, and I do have 6 other topics I want to talk about. And by the way, I will leave a link to the to this article. It does have a video, so you guys can watch it yourself. You can comment on it, give your own opinion. It's fine, whatever opinion you have. I'll leave it up to you guys. But I have to go to another topic, and the one other topic is this story that also has gotten a lot of airways, and it was a sad story. I'm just happy that it had a respectable ending to this whole ordeal, and that's involving the kidnapped girls, Alexandra and Kaliana, who was kidnapped by this crazed man who also killed their mother and their 14-year-old sister. They've been missing for days. It was all over the news. It's been a massive floodgate of reports kept coming in and out of both the web and in the major news circuits, CNN, Fox, NBC, ABC. Everybody was covering this. It was pretty much a race against the clock. Apparently, and by the way, I was going to bring this up, but it was so much going on, so much news report. I decided to just wait it out for a while until things started to cool down. But apparently, they did find the girls. They were safe, and the man who was suspected of committing this crime has basically took his own life. Thankfully, he didn't took the girl's life. This story pretty much explains a lot. Both, I believe, the mother and another person is arrested. One of them actually is going to be charged with murder and kidnapping, and that's something that is gonna be pushed through, especially after the incident. For what I understand from the stories that I have gathered in the last few days, they believe the guy who committed this crime, the guy who committed the kidnapping, believed that the 2 girls were his. And there was also reports that one of the his relatives assisted in the murder. There was a whole bunch of article, a whole bunch of stories, and being that the fact is that there are some that may be not accurate, I decided to wait. This is the latest one that I just got a few hours ago, and I'm going to talk about it. Hope was fading that 2 young sisters abducted from their Tennessee home would not be found alive weeks after they vanished. The kidnapper had allegedly killed their mother and sister, and he was armed with a pistol as officers closed in. Yet the 12-year-old Alexandria and 8-year-old Cayenne Brain went home to their father Friday alive, with no apparent injuries other than being tired, scared, itchy from poison ivy. They told officers who found them that they had not ate food or water for 3 days, said the Mississippi Highway Patrol Master Sergeant Steve Harford. Beverly Goldman, the aunt of the slave mother, Joanne Brain, said she was relieved the girls were home, but still saddened by the killing of her of the 14-year-old daughter as well as their mother. He's been missing for so long. How do you hide from 350 million people? Goldman said. Well, that's not really that hard. I'm just saying that if you don't want to be found, trust me, they'll find a way not to be found. I thought they were going to find him dead. Find him dead. By the way, from what I've been hearing from the stories and how this thing come up, a lot of people thought the same way. I thought the same way. They was racing against the clock, and again, I'm happy that they found them alive at home with their father. The girls and him. So I'm very, very relieved that those girls are home and not dead, like I figured they were going to be. At the point, Mayer claims to be the girl's father. That's what I think. Mays claimed to be the girl's father. That may be why he spared them. One criminologist says it also may be that while he wanted to escape prosecution, he didn't believe the girls were better off dead, and that he had chosen the families um, described as an uncle-like figure who smiled cheek to cheek with the girls in a Facebook photo. That will be taken down very, very soon. He probably developed an attachment to them, and even the most vile killers can separate the world into people they care about, people they distaste, and people they don't care about. As said James Ann Fox, criminologist in Northern University. Hmm. Attorneys said that May 35 killed Joe Ann Brain and 14-year-old Adrienne, I think that's is with the E-N-E, on April 27th in Whitesville, Tennessee. Mayor's wife, Teresa Mays, is charged with murder and killing. She told investigators she saw her husband kill the mother and older girls, then drove him to the younger children and the bodies to Mississippi, according to court documents. His mother, Mary Mays, also charged in the kidnapping, but maintains she is not guilty. This case, man, oh man, there's a lot more to be said in this article. I'm gonna leave that, guys, to you to talk about. Um, Man, there's gonna be a lot to talk about with this. There's gonna be a lot of stuff gonna be coming out of this. You better believe that this is far from over. They're gonna look for to press charges on both of those people who they charge, and being a high profile case, I wouldn't be surprised to get a conviction. But again, um, my main thing is I'm actually happy that the two girls are safe. They're actually home. They actually did question them. They didn't release what they discovered, just that the fact they hadn't eaten for days and that's got poison ivy exposure. But again, they're home, safe and sound, and yet there will be a lot more questions that's going to be developing in the next couple of days. Man, that was one. It was one crazy thing after another with that story. This story was getting more and more build up. They really pushed hard to find them, and I got to give my kudos to the officers who worked hard on this case. They really did a great job at of keeping of continuing the search, and as a result, they've definitely found those girls alive and well. And yet, I have to say, my condolences come out to them for the loss of their mother and and their sister. Other than that, I really don't know what else to say except I'll leave that guys up to you if you want to add something up to it. But this was a crazy roller coaster ride that has been developing in the last days, to the point where I didn't even know what was being told, what the truth was being told. There was so much. Every 5 minutes there was a story about this. They kept that story on every 5 minutes, and like I said, the only reason why I didn't talk about it is because when you have so much information thrown at one time, there's going to be one, two, possibly three that's misleading. But everything seemed to come to place. There's still going to be more to be ironed out. But once it's said and done, I hope some kind of justice will be handed out, especially with the kidnapping, because that's something they're not going to even gonna let go. That's something they're going to definitely push. If they can't get the murder charges, or at least I believe I forgot the word, but when you assist accessory to murder, they're definitely going to try and at least push for the kidnapping. I think they're going to get it, but only time will tell. There's still stuff that has to be ironed out. But the important thing is those girls are safe and sound with their loving families. Um, So, with that being said, I'll turn my attention to another article. Another article that recently was given to me by someone who actually saw my videos one time and said that I should check this out. And I tell you, when I saw this, the picture alone is scary because this woman, who happens to be an ex-LAPD detective, had the most curious face or expression I have ever seen. It looked like she was just giving a stern warning to the judge. I don't know what it was, but being the fact that she's got 27 years to life for murdering the wife of former lover 26 years ago. That's how long this case was. It's very bizarre. I mean, this is a story that really got my attention. I'm glad he brought it to my attention at least. Um, but it's the headlines is LAPD detective gets 27 years to life for murdering his lover, and it goes as follows. Former Los Angeles police detective was sentenced Friday to 27 years to life in prison for murdering the wife of a former lover 26 years ago. Now, Stephanie Liziars, 52, was found guilty on March for killing Sharon Rosemiston, a nurse who was bludgeoned and shot to death in the condo she shared with her husband of 3 months. Rosamund's mother, sister, and the widower spoke during the sentencing hearing about their pain and described the victim as warm, caring, and a loving person. Ryan told the judge he still grieves. The fact that Sharon's death occurred because she met and married me brings me to my knees. He said, I do not know how a cop this how to cope with this appalling fact. The senior court judge Robert Perry gave listener the term of 25 years to life for first-degree murder and an additional 2 years for a pistol use of a for personal use of a firearm. He said Leslie will be credited for 1,608 days and nearly 4.5 years of good behavior and time already served. Her defense attorneys said an appeal has been filed. Outside court, listener brother and mother have said their hearts goes out to the family, but still support her their family member Lysias and believe she did not get a fair trial. Um, there was never a presumption of evidence of innocence, said Steve Luris. The media got to listen to the DNA and guilt from 2.5 years before Stephanie had a trial. During the trial, prosecutors focused on the romance relationship between Lilias and Rutten after their graduation from college. They claimed Lilias was consumed with jealousy when the guy decided to marry um, Ross Ernestine. I'm sorry if I'm saying his name wrong. I truly do apologize. In hung the case hung on DNA from bite marks prosecutors said was left by the former LAPD detective on Rosamund's of Roz Aminston arm. Defense attorney argued the DNA evidence was corrupted over the years and could not be considered reliable. Lizzie was not a suspect in the 1986 because detectives didn't believe two robbers who had attacked another woman in the area was to blame. The case file, however, did mention Lawrence because her relationship with the widower. No suspects was found in the case. Went cold until May 2009, when the undercover officer followed Lyncia and obtained a sample of her saliva to compare with the DNA left in the original crime scene. Police Chief Charles Burke said at the time. Prosecutors suggested Lillians knew and avoided leaving the other evidence such as fingerprints, The idea that saliva from the bite mark could be hers undoing was inconceivable in 1986 when DNA wasn't used for forensic tools. Prosecutor asked the judge for a maximum sentence. However, to mislead internal homicide investigation permitted her to avoid permitted her to avoid justice from the crime for more than 20 years. The prosecutor wrote in the court document, it is blatantly ironic that the defendant's long-running description now benefits her with the respect to the sentence. The defense attorney, Mark Overland, had pointed out, however, this that his client's personal files is repleted repleted with combinations throughout her 26 years and did not contain a single allegation of improper contacts or excessive force. I'm going to stop there, and I'm just going to get my own thought of it. Like I said, if you see this picture of a woman, you can tell that she was not happy when she had the sentence carried out. She looked very pissed. I'm looking at the picture right now. And far as I'm concerned about this, it's ironic how the evidence that's used to catch criminals is good for one, but when it comes to the police department, oh no, that's unreliable evidence. I think that the point that they got suspicious from that is the fact that the woman happens to be the ex of the widower, and I think that drove their suspicion, and I think that kept their signal up in arms from this for years and years and years, until finally they was able to get a DNA match. And like they always say, sometimes the DNA match is what all they need to get a conviction. As for the appeal, she can definitely appeal and ask for a retrial, but like I said, it may take a while, it may take years, so who knows what's going to happen unless she's willing to give her DNA again to match, to see if there's actually a match between the bite marks. Then that's really that's really the only way she's going to prove her innocence. Other than that, from what I'm reading here, it's hard to say. I say it because, like I said, I'm only reading from one article. And it does go into intense details as to what went down. But like I said, that's just the overall tip of the iceberg when it comes to this kind of case. Because the one thing I said, if she did this to win back her ex-boyfriend, it definitely didn't work because she still never got him. And that's the whole thing that bothers me. You did all this, and you still hasn't, and it still hasn't gave you what you wanted. And the fact is, and this is something I definitely need to mention, the family of the deceased is filing a wrongful death lawsuit against the NYPD and the city of Los Angeles because they believe that they hampered the case instead of helping it, especially since there was already been known that the woman had an affair before she met the deceased. And they should at least investigate that. They should at least question her, and I think they didn't because, like I said, most police station believes that police officers can't do no wrong. But it's the perfect case of, no, there are cops out there, and if you give them enough leeway, they can commit crimes. The only difference is it's harder for police officers to prove because A, they do have their own people who look out for them for each other, and B, no one really believes the cops do anything wrong. Like they're just innocent, and they're never would do such a thing. They hold an oath to protect and serve. I wish that was always the case, but unfortunately, you do have rotten apples out there. So this case is far from over. If they'd already said they appealed, they never got a fair trial. Which from what I understand, from what I talked to my friend about it, it definitely they said that they did pound this in the news a lot, and like I said, that sometimes the media can be your worst enemy, especially when you're accused of murder. So we'll see how that goes. But overall, if she did this, and from what I say, the evidence definitely pointed she did this justice served, in my opinion. But like I said, it all depends on how she's going to base her appeal under, and it all going to come down to whether or not she's going to do another DNA test to prove her innocence. So until then, we're just gonna have to wait and see. But like I said, most of the time when they do those DNA tests, 99.9% of the time, it does point to the person committing the crime. But like I said 99.9%. Nothing's perfect. Let's see what happens on that one. All right, I got time for a few more. I got 7. I'll try and keep this under a certain time limit. If it goes above the 40-minute mark, I'll make an extra video. I'll talk with some other news. But I gotta talk about this one, and this one is pissing me off. This is getting way too out of hand. I did a blog about a few days ago about something like this, and this. And now with this is coming on with this case being as already hot and as already as pretty much heated from both sides of the coins, this is the last thing I wanted to hear. And for once, I have to agree with the George Zimmerman camp, because this is not something that he wants to see, nor does anyone else. This is getting ridiculous, and it's not helping matters at all. And whoever this dumb website is should be ashamed of themselves, because they only making matters worse. And it's basically marking Trayvon Martin's death, as well as making George Zimmerman look even worse. I'm talking about the Trayvon Martin's shooter target hoodie. That's right. It is a print, a hooded target print. Who thought this was a good idea? Who thought this was not going to get people pissed off? Let me read what it says here. The attorney of the George Zimmerman says that he's disgusted by the Trayvon Martin's inspired target that recently surfaced for sale on a gun website. This is the highest level of distaste and the lowest level of civility. This is a type of hatred that what this is. This is a type of hatred. That's what this is. It is hate mongering that's going to make it more difficult to try this case. And you know what? I agree with him 100%. And it's from both sides too. This is something that it's like a mockery. They're making a mockery of something that's very, very serious. Local 6 first started. I'm going to read it. Sorry, I'm going to skip a paragraph here. This paper target, which O'Mara was referring to, features a black hoodie with crosshairs stamped across the chest. The images of skillets, and a can of iced tea printed near the pocket. Why? Local 6 first spotted the ad for the target on a firearm auction website and reports that it's since been pulled. The station spoke to an anonymous person who claimed to be the hawking the print, one of the hawking for the print. The main motivation was to make money off the controversy. The seller told Local 6. The print was sold in packs for $8. The response was overwhelming, and the seller told Local 6, "I sold out in 2 days." Well, I hope you're happy that you made your money. I hope your soul goes right straight to hell from doing it. I'm sorry. While the seller wouldn't confirm how many prints targets were made or sold, he did say that some were sold in Florida gun dealers. And the ad of selling states that obviously we support Zimmerman and believe his innocence and that he shot a thug. There you go, guys. You're not making his case any better. I'm just letting you know. And yeah, Zimmerman has every right to be angry, even though a lot of people don't want to believe it. He has every right to be angry, as well as the parents of Trayvon Martin should be angry towards this. This is tasteless, despicable racism at its worst. And those who have bought that, you're not supporting George Zimmerman. You're actually hurting him. You're hurting him. You're hurting this case. This is this. Why? And the fact that you will even make money off a tragedy like this is beyond me. But then again, I shouldn't be too surprised by this. But it does anger me that this actually happened. And you know, and we always continuing to deny that racism don't exist. Well, you know what? It's kind of hard to say it doesn't when this stuff happens. Because there's no reason why you should make a sign with iced tea and a hoodie with a bullseye in the middle of this picture's chest. It should be no reason at all. But like I said, there are people who will make a quick buck out of anything, even a tragedy. And I don't know. The article that I got here doesn't say what the family's going to do. I do know that George Zimmerman's party had come out against this, and wisely so, because again, this is a support he does not need, nor should he want. And I'll read it again. The tasteless target was inspired by the death of 17-year-old Martin, the unarmed Florida teen who was shot dead by neighborhood watchman George Zimmerman on February 26. His death sparked an uproar across the United States and a national debate about racial profiling. Well, if they ain't going to spark more debate about racial profiling, this will. Martin, who was shot in the chest for wearing a hoodie and was carrying a bag of Skittles and drinking a drink before a fatal interaction with Zimmerman in Stanford, Florida. And that's pretty much it. I just read you the whole thing. This was given by Daily News. I will leave the link along with all the links that I have here today, and I will pretty much talk about it. Guys, I'm going to break this up to two parts because I'm not going to go through an hour from this. I'm going to keep it down to a low 40. We'll talk about the other stories. But as far as this one's concerned, I don't know. When are we going to learn that? When are we going to learn that profiling, discrimination, and racism only causes more problems? This kid is dead. This kid has died a horrible and tragic death, and people seem to want to find new and incredible ways to throw mud at this kid. What was the purpose of that? And people are so hell-bent to say, oh, he was guilty because he was walking down the street. The whole thing would never happen had he not followed the kid. This would never happen. We would never have the discussion. But people seem to forget that. People seem to forget that the fact is that him shooting him and that self-defense law and the fact that the police department basically messed up this case where the police would have done their job right. And by the way, just to prove how biased this law is, there's a woman right now in the other side of town who is facing 20 years because she shot a gun in the air, but she couldn't stand your ground because according to the judge, she came back where she could have easily avoided, even though it was quite clear that her life was in danger. And by shooting the gun in the air, he basically saved her life. Didn't kill the guy, just he went off, he left. But now she's serving 20 years just for aggravated assault. But George Zimmerman, who killed the person, get off scot-free. Explain that to me. Explain that to me. You got gun lobbyists who are so dead set of defending George Zimmerman for his actions. They don't even care about George Zimmerman. That's the whole thing. Right? They care about making money. on the expense of people's lives. And I'm not against people owning guns. I'm against people who's not responsible for having guns. And it's clearly this guy was not responsible. I will say this. I will give him respect. I will give him credit. At least he spoke out against this type of mud-slandering and behavior when it comes to making it profit over people's miseries and deaths. I will give him that. I will give him his camp at least speaking out. At least it tells me that, hey, they're aware that this is something they do not need. So I'm not going to knock Zinnerman on that account. But keep in mind, guys, this whole thing would never happen if the guy simply just let the police do their job and let them take over from there. But because he wanted to be a cop, because he felt he was obligated to follow a kid who done nothing wrong because he was wearing a hoodie or whatever you guys want to call it, a life was lost. I don't know how the family's going to respond to this. I know they can't be too happy about it. I know they can't be too, thrilled to hear this. This was in the news. This was online. This was in my papers. And the more this story comes out, the more this thing is it's played out. The more stories you're going to hear about this. The more stories you're going to hear about both sides slandering the other. And to me, this is not going to stop until a trial is actually brought forward and actually the evidence and the facts can be put right on the forefront and get this thing done once for all. But as long as this take, I do believe that this is going to continue on, and I hope that at least now with everybody having attention to this, that stupidity like this will stop. Because, like I said, the guy, it was clear that he was trying to make a buck over a tragedy, and you know what? The hell with him. If that's your way of making money over somebody's misery, you can go to hell. Because you know what? You just made the whole situation 10 times worse. And for the wrong reasons. So, it's now the 41-minute mark. I'm going to stop here. I will do part 2. I still got 5 more stories to go. These stories I will do in the next part. So, until then, this is J77 saying take care.